Hello everybody, it is Nicole from iiKiui, and today I have a marker review. So this is the very first review that I've ever done, and it is on the company Art and Fly on their alcohol-based markers. Now a little disclaimer before I get into the video. In exchange for my honest review, they had sent me the 24 count markers and the 6-pack skin color markers. This is not going to alter the way that I review this. I'm going to give you guys my honest opinion from my point of view and from my skill level. So let's go ahead and get into it. So how I first came across this company was actually through Facebook. I saw an ad on Facebook and they claimed to be cheaper than Copic markers but still retain the quality of alcohol-based markers. It got me a little interested because, as you know, a lot of my Copics are running out of ink and they're very expensive to replace, so I was looking for an alternative to Copic markers. I know there are other brands out there besides Copic, but some of them are just as expensive, so I was looking for something that was affordable yet still retained a high quality pigment and use. The 24 set comes in a flexible plastic case with a zipper, so it makes it very easy to access and to bring around. There's always a place for it, which is helpful because for other markers, I just buy them individually and they don't come in any package of any sort, so I have to find places to store them. Now for the skin colors, it comes in a plastic case and it has a snap button in the front, which also helps, but it's not as durable as I'd like it to be. However, it is just packaging, so maybe if I were to find another place for them, I could do that. Now let's talk about price. Since this is the main selling point that caught my attention, I thought I'd spend a little more time on this. So the price for the 24 pack currently, when this video goes up, it is $35 and it's on sale. Originally it is $50 or $49.99. This is all in US dollars, by the way. But right now it is on sale for $34.99 or $35. For the 6-pack of alcohol-based markers that are skin toned, it is $15, and that is the regular price. So one thing I want to note before I compare the other markers, these ones only have a chisel tip and a bullet tip. So they don't have a brush nib, but I'm still going to compare some of them to Copics and other markers. So the first marker I'm going to compare it to is Prismacolor, and since some of the Prismacolor markers started off with a bullet nib and a chisel tip nib, I wanted to compare that price. So for a set of 24 from Prismacolor is $55, and from the Winsor & Newton brush ones for a 12-pack is $45. So for a 24-pack, I would assume it's around $90. For the Pro markers from Winsor & Newton, 24-pack is $66, and the pigment markers for a 12-pack is $52, which makes the 24-pack around $104. Now for Copics, the Copic Originals, it is $120 for a 24-pack. For the Xiao or the CIAO, I don't know how to pronounce that, for a 24-pack it is $77, and for the Sketch it is $116. Now, I know that the nibs are not the same or exactly the same on the Copics and the Winsor & Newton brush tips compared to these markers, but I thought that just give a general overview of these more well-known brands and their prices compared to the Art and Fly marker brand and their prices. Now that I've discussed the main part of it, the price, let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons. So currently I am coloring these two drawings that I did earlier in the day. They are not identical because I traced over something that I drew earlier in Micron pen. Now the 3 pens that I used, 2 of them are from the Pigma Microns, and one of them is the Micro Perm. Now I noticed that the Micro Perm one is the only one that bled when using the marker over it, so if you do have that one, I don't suggest it. Also, let's take into account that I'm using Canson marker paper, and I found that this paper is the best for bringing out the color and the pigment in the marker. So for these drawings, I didn't really take my time on these. A lot of the mess ups and smudge marks are just because of my own mistakes and not because of the marker. Now, some of the pros of the marker is that it is cheaper than Copics and other big names, as I discussed. They have very bright colors, and I showed a swatch list in the beginning, and I noticed that a lot of the colors are very bright and pigmented, and when using it with one swipe, it pretty much showed the color all the way through. But for the swatches, I did do 2 strokes just to make sure that they were solid. They are good for quick drawing and coloring and drafting. Because they don't have a brush tip, I found that it was harder for me to get to the curves, but of course I also lack experience coloring in the chisel tip size, so that could just be me and my lack of skill with the marker and the material. I had done a test run with the markers before, and that one I did a lot slower. I took a lot more time to do that one. Now, some of the cons of these markers is that they have no brush nib. There is a limited color range, but the company has told me that they are still working on getting more. Since this is a new set that came out, they only have a limited color right now, so they'll probably have more in the future. There are no specific color names. If you don't like not having names on your markers, then maybe that's not for you. Now this last one, I'm not sure if it is a pro or con. I think it depends on your preference, but the marker does dry pretty quickly. I noticed that when I started drawing these 2 pictures. Let me get into that a little bit in more detail. So for these drawings, I did outline them in pen, and I did that about 2 hours before I started coloring them. I did this because in the first drawing that I did not let the pen sit, so it started smudging quite a bit. I don't suggest that. However, for this one, the only one that seemed to have bleeding problems was the microperm one. I'm not sure if that's just the microperm itself. I have had issues with that in the past with other drawings, so it might just be that pen, not the marker. For the most part, the other micron pens did not smudge, except for areas where there was a lot of ink. So like the eyebrows, when I ran the marker across that, it smudged quite a bit. And I would just be wary of that if you use any type of marker. I think that it does not apply only to these specific markers, but probably to any alcohol-based markers. Now let's get into the colors, and the reason why I chose the colors, the first one is a more pale person with pink red eyes and green hair, and the second person is someone with a darker skin tone and they have blue hair and orange yellow eyes. I chose these colors because they're the ones that have the most color range, or at least 3 markers that I can vary and add dimension to the image without like having to use another color. For blending, I don't think that they blend well with the other markers. So say I used the base coat of one marker and then I went over another one, they won't really blend into it because it dries so quickly. Now if you like the solid line, which I don't actually mind too much, that's what it does. It doesn't blend into it unless you add it immediately after you added a stroke of the first color, or you use the first color and you blend over the second one. That's what I found works, but I also noticed that with these markers, when you go over them a second time, they actually do change the whole color of the base. So if you go over the first layer and let it dry and go over it again, it will darken actually a significant amount, which I noticed was not very prominent with Copics. You actually have to layer them quite a lot, and even when I layered Copics or other alcohol-based markers a lot, they would not show a significant difference. So if you are looking for something that could layer and that actually shows more dimension. I think these ones actually work pretty well. For the hair, I think it kind of depends on how you shade. I was just going for a really messy look that still had dimension. I feel like with a brush nib, these would be more effective. Now on a separate piece of paper, I did a blending test, and this was to show that with the colors they had, that they'd actually blend pretty well if you work quickly. So when I was working on the drawings, it didn't really work as quick as I would like to because I was kind of still deciding. And because of that, some of the marker bled because I was being messy. But in this chart, I wrote down the markers right next to it so you know which ones I'm using if you decide to purchase it or just want to see what the colors look like. One thing to note that the colors on the caps are not exact to what they look like on paper. Anyways, I blended the pinks to the reds and the yellows to the orange, greens, the blue to purple, skin tones, browns, grays, and warm grays. And I found that they actually blend really well. I still need to experiment more with these markers, but I do have high hopes for them. I really like some of the colors. They're really pigmented, and when I used them, they felt like they had a lot of ink in them, which I really like. Like, it didn't feel like they were going to die on me any second. They feel like they can keep going for a long time. I actually used the black marker for an assignment for homework, and we had to do silhouettes for 3 different characters, and we had to do a silhouette sheet. And this marker I used on like 6 different pieces of paper for so many silhouettes, and even when I use it now, it still is a solid black line, so that's a really good thing, and it shows that it didn't like dry out immediately after. Another good thing I found these markers to be really well, like used really well for, is really quick gestural drawings or fashion drawings. And these markers worked really well because you can use the chisel tip and just quickly jot down something. Or if you were to draw a building or a room, I think these will be really well. So anything that kind of requires a chisel tip would work really well with these markers. So overall, that is my review of the markers. I do think that they are well worth the price. They are actually really good quality, and I feel like the drawings I did not really do them justice because I work so quickly. One thing I would have done differently is probably lay down the marker first and then just go over it in pen to avoid any of the smudging that occurred, and or at least go over the pencil marks and then outline it after the marker's down. That's definitely one way to avoid it, and I think the colors will be much brighter than smudgy. I do think these are pretty good quality markers, and they're at an affordable price. I really like the skin tone set because it actually has kind of like yellow tones and then more pink tones, and then it has a brown. But I did find that most of the browns I used for the skin came in the 24 pack. Now, compared to other markers, these are very affordable and they're pretty good use, but if you want a brush nib, then they're probably not for you. The company itself is not a big store. It is only available to purchase online. If you guys are interested in buying them, I'll leave all the links down below. You could check out the website. They don't only have alcohol-based markers, they do have other stuff. I've never tried this stuff before, so you can go ahead and take a look down there. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I actually had quite a lot of fun doing it, especially going and researching the product and trying it out and seeing like what are my impressions on it, especially from my personal point of view. I hope you guys like this video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!